Hello friends and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be doing another LD28 game with again the theme of You Only Get One. Today's game is called Seed by Deadly Pear and it is actually a very simple game that takes the concept of You Only Get One and uses it very directly, which is a thing I haven't seen done all that much. Today's game is essentially going to play out sort of like a life simulator where we get to plant one seed in a grid-based tile system, and wherever we plant that, the game is then going to simulate the reaction of our flowers growing versus the reaction of the weeds growing, and that's all going to automated just go until the weeds or the flowers win, or maybe the flowers always win, I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, it's going to record how many turns that took, and the object of the game is to complete that task of having the flowers take over the whole board in as few turns as possible. So I chose this game because I thought it had a really nice visual style, I thought it was very elegant, to the point, and essentially just kind of cuts away a lot of the extra stuff that isn't always necessary. So let's take a look at the credits very quickly. There are the people responsible for this one, and let's just do a game. Let's see how it goes. So you only have one seed, plant it wisely. So there's our game board. You can see varying states of different soil. Some places look like they might be a little bit more prone to be successful than others, but I think what we really need to keep in mind here is the weeds, which are the ones on these sort of dark beige tiles that look a little bit more like scraps of lettuce, perhaps. I mean, they look like weeds, to be honest, but I'm just sort of giving you another thing to operate by. And we want to find places where those are kind of piled together, and we sort of want to get flowers in between them if possible. But I think the other thing is there's a large empty space here, which I think the weeds could congregate in very quickly because there's a lot of tiles that are of varying degrees of sort of decay. So I'm going to choose to place my first seed right here, and we'll see how that goes. You'll see the flowers now centering around that one spot, and it looks like the weeds have kind of taken us in on all sides, which is perhaps the worst thing that can happen. I have been stuck. I did a couple of runs of this before I actually started this out, and I have been stuck in a position where it looked like neither side could win. And again, I'm not sure that the weeds actually can win. It might be that if you're in a position that's sort of indefensible, maybe you get stuck in this spot and things just kind of swirl around. But it's very cool to see the kind of time-lapse, like, quick version of time being condensed down like that. But as I watch this, I'm thinking I probably am not going to be able to prevail. So maybe that was a poor choice. I was thinking since we had all this space, maybe the flowers could coalesce there and then spread out from the center point, trying to take everything down. But I think I probably wanted a corner where I could grant, like, myself a foothold a little bit and things couldn't slide around on the outside edges. So let's hit escape and we'll go back to the menu and we'll start another game because this doesn't seem like it's going to work out. But aside from the visual aesthetics, which again seem very nice, the pixel art looks very lovely. There's also this theme that's playing in the background, and I have to say it's a lovely theme, but the loop happens a little bit more quickly than I would have liked, so I tried to turn it down a bit so it wasn't quite as overpowering. Let's plant a seed in the top left here and see if we can maybe have a better shot at things. But I enjoy the music, I just think it needs to be spread out a little bit more, and actually the timing of it goes well with the progression, that sort of a frantic pace of these flowers moving from one tile to the next. I just think if we could have a couple other verses, but again, 48-hour game. I say this in every episode, but it is just kind of a fact. So we made it in 205 turns this time. Let's try to see if we could break that score. Probably don't need to go back out to the main menu each time we do that as well. It would probably be fine to just drop us off here with another random grouping of tiles. And it's kind of funny that we're sort of using seed in a meta way here because essentially these things are all happening in sort of a randomly generated fashion. So it's sort of like a seed that we're going to plant a seed in, if you know what I mean. Anyway, let's pick, how about this top side here? Let's go in the top, almost in the middle. We'll see if that allows us to more quickly gain a foothold around the weeds, which are surprisingly persistent. It seems like they put up quite a fight, more so than you'd expect pretty much every time. You think you have a good strategic position for things, but it doesn't always seem to work out that way. But I really do like the concept here, and I wish there was more game to it, a little bit more meat that we could use to kind of flesh this out. I would think that maybe this would work as a nice groundwork, and we actually were successful here with 255 turns, so we didn't do as well as the other time. But I'd like to see this as like level 1, and then maybe level 2 we start to add some briar patches or things that might get in the way of progression, or maybe we enter an area where there could be some bushes or footpaths that split up the space, or maybe we find some trees or something, and then, you know, kind of have to work our way around those things. And even though things are sort of randomly generated, it still could be kind of fun to see how you approach the pseudo-strategy of selecting where you want to begin this cascade of events. And I'm sort of looking at it a little bit like one of those coin games that you would play at a carnival or something, where essentially you drop a quarter down a slot, and then the goal is to try and get all the quarters to smack into each other, to keep pushing more quarters down, which eventually push more quarters down, and eventually you hopefully get some quarters at the end, which you can then feed back into the top. So it's a little bit of a convoluted metaphor, but at the same time, hopefully it makes my point that, yeah, this is sort of about a cascade of events. So, best score so far, 163. This would also kind of beg for a leaderboard. But then again, it's kind of difficult to compare a leaderboard versus your friends when everybody's got a sort of a different level build, which, you know, it works in Spelunky, but that's because there's actual, like, more skill involved. Not to say that there isn't maybe a little bit of skill involved in reading the map, but at the same time, it is a bit random as well. I haven't really come up with a pattern of ways to win that seems like it's going to be the correct way every time. So let's try on the right this time. Let's see if that works any better. I have a feeling 163 is going to be my score to beat. Would also be nice to see if maybe there could be a little bar on the bottom that sort of shows your highest score and then where you are on that timeline. Like if you're about to overshoot it or if you're going to make it a little earlier. 165, that was actually not bad. So I don't know, I could see the timeline working really well visually. Just sort of, you know, pixels creeping up as each turn goes by. Sort of giving you a visual indicator of, you know, exactly where you are, if you're on track or if you're about to lose. And just the ability to see how many turns are going by as you're watching is also kind of useful. For some reason, I also am kind of imagining seeing day and night transitions happening here as well would be kind of neat. I don't know why it really isn't probably necessary, but it would just look neat. Let's put one, how about bottom left-ish, see how that goes. I mean, I could also try and plant a seed on the weeds, I believe, but I don't know if that necessarily is the best idea. It doesn't seem like it would always help. And I could also see there being other strains of flowers and things, too. Maybe seeds with different abilities, so to speak, or tendencies, perhaps, is more correct term, that maybe they have certain, you know, they'd prefer ground with a certain temperature, a certain, you know, fertilizer level, and maybe you could see splits on things. I don't know, there's a million ways you could take this concept and keep evolving it, and I'm kind of curious to know if that's something that might be interesting for you guys, because I kind of like it. I don't know what it is about games about nature and watching things grow, but it just sort of works well with the indie spirit, I suppose. It's sort of like a little seed in itself. So I guess we should probably wrap up all the silly metaphors at this point, but I enjoyed this game. Even though it's this simple, even a concept like this can thrive when it's presented well and just has, you know, a nice, clean, just core inner working to it, and that's kind of where we're at here. There's not a whole lot of fluff that needs to be trimmed away. It gets right to the point. So that was Deadly Pear Seed. If you want to go try this, it's actually available to try right in your browser. You can feel free to just let me know what your best score is. I'm kind of curious. If anybody can beat like 100 turns, that's probably pretty fancy. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions as well, so feel free to chime in the comments. And be sure to check out some of the other stuff in the description other than the game link too if you want to. I've got my other social media stuff like my Twitter, so if you want to check me out over there, feel free. And of course, I've got my site, indie-impressions.com, where I post every day's videos, and they're all sorted and categorized over there. So if you're looking for a specific video or a specific type of game, genre, or payment style, they're all right over there. So that is it for another day, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. As always, feel free to leave some support. I do greatly appreciate it. And I will see you back again tomorrow. New episodes are every single day. So I'll catch you then, and I hope you have a terrific night. Talk to you later.